Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study through the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We are currently in Genesis chapter 2. And so we left off, God has completed the 6 days of his creation. As we move into chapter 2, we're going to find out really specifically why God created all of what we see, right? The universe, the planets, the stars, wildlife, livestock, all of this. Why did God create all of this? And so we left off, and I'm exploring the idea of the Sabbath day. Let me go back and read this. And he said, verse 27, I'm in the wrong chapter here. He says, so the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed. By the 7th day God completed his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work that he had done. God blessed the 7th day and declared it holy. For on it he had rested from his creation. And so, now, again, one other thing, remember I said that to understand when we see Genesis chapter 1 and then Genesis chapter 2, how Moses is writing the narrative here. Some people, and usually biblical critics who don't believe in the Bible, who don't have an interest in the Bible, try to criticize and say, well, there's contradictions, because in chapter 1 he says this is what happened, in chapter 2 this has happened, and there's no contradiction. It's almost like you can say in chapter 1 he gives a summary, a little more detailed summary, and then in chapter 2 he's going to zero in on certain details that he wants to explore more, and that's all that's going on. We also said that, remember that at the end of each day, and then when he comes to day 6, when he created everything, he said it was good, and then at the end of day 6 he said it is very good. So what God turned over to Adam, okay, and remember Adam was created to rule the planet, and so what God turned over to Adam was very good. Now this is important because I want you to hold that thought with Adam for a moment. And when he says here that God rested, and we was talking about the term, what does it mean to rest? And this is going to be important here, because the term rest doesn't mean that God is taking a break to recoup his energy, but we said the idea of resting is to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So in this case, what was God's fruits of his labor? And the idea was that he was going to now bring man into and turn over to man the creation, and that he himself, God, would enjoy the fellowship with man and the creation. And then we're going to see, even when the female is brought into the narrative, that God is going to enjoy the fellowship of Adam, Eve, and all of creation. That's the rest, okay, that he's referring to, enjoying the fruit of your labor. So it would be like if you created some of you women, if you created a dress to wear to a function, you labor, you go to the store, you buy the fabrics, and you labor to sew it. Then the rest part would be to wear it and enjoy it in the function or the event that you made it for. Same thing with men. You create something and then you enjoy the fruits of the labor. So for example, I gave the illustration of a house. You build a house. You furnish the house. The entering of the rest part of that would be that you're going to now live in the house. Enjoy the house, right? Sit out on the patio. You're going to take a bath, you're going to sleep in the bedroom and whatever. Maybe even enjoy the view from a bedroom, okay? All right, that's entering to the rest. And when when it says that God is going to enter into the rest, or God enter into his rest, he is referring to now all the creation, which includes Adam. And that's so the idea with and I'm going to go on and kind of expand the thought, because obviously there are the Sabbath day issue is a bigger issue, but we need to understand the very roots of it first. In other words, I'm going to explore I'm going to answer the question: should we obey the Sabbath day today? All right. Before I get back to that, we need to understand again what is referred to here when he says, verse 1 again, chapter 2, verse 1, so the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed. In other words, God completed. By the seventh day, God completed his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, for on it he rested from his work of his creation. So we need to understand that this is what it's referring to, that God is now going to enjoy the fruits of his labor. The fruits of his labor include, not limited to, the creation of man to rule over what he has created. Now, what is the Sabbath then? What is the Sabbath day? And so we see from the beginning God blessing. Listen, let's go back to this term here, verse number 3. God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, for on it he rested from his work. And there are a lot of things about this that need to be unpacked. One, notice he said God blessed the Sabbath day. So everything about the day is supposed to be happy, joyous, and out of labor. I'll come back to that point and why I'm saying that. Okay. In other words, so the 6 days man was to work, and then the seventh day would be a day of rest. All right. Now remember, from this vantage point, recouping energy is not the issue. Man had not sinned. The curse had not come in. So there was no issue of death, sickness, and all of that. However, we're going to see after sin that a 6 and 1 day rest becomes essential for the recouping of energy, a resting for your mind, your emotions. So the Sabbath day is great for that. We have a 5 and 2 day work week, which is even better. In fact, some maybe even have more. Some people have a 3 day work week. Okay. All right. But that's after Genesis chapter 3. Remember, the concept at this point is enjoying the fruits of the labor. That's what this is about. And even the concept of work, remember, is not a toil. Okay? It's not a toil of labor. Alright, so God separates the seventh day as a day of rest or enjoying the fruits of your labor. We can even say party day, right? Alright. The festival, okay? Alright, so remember, from this component yet, we have, this is the day, what is holy about it is simply set apart. Excuse me. So he said, God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy. And then he said, for on it he rested from his creation. So all of that goes into mind. The term blessed, right? To be happy. The word blessed itself means to be in a state of happiness. To bless someone is to declare that, to decree that state of blessing or happiness, and then to be blessed. And you hear people kind of, I think, erroneously use the term. If you ask them, how are you doing? Highly blessed and favored. They're in favored. Okay. The idea is that because of what God has done, this is the state in which you now live in. The conclusion of God's creation is a state of happiness. Okay? The seventh day would be that state of enjoying the fruits of your labor. Now, we have to fast forward a little bit to sin, because with sin, this changes everything. So I got to jump ahead a little bit. We're going to really talk about that in the third chapter. But for answering the question now in terms of the Sabbath day, understand from this perspective of Genesis chapter 2, sin hasn't happened yet. And so from this perspective, we're talking about the intent of the enjoyment of the Sabbath would simply be festival, enjoyment, peace, joy, right? Enjoying the fruits of the labor. All right. After sin, then the Sabbath day takes upon a different meaning from the standpoint of the necessity of a break. Just in your everyday work schedule, you need a break. Callous, greedy bosses will work you to death mentally, right? There's a breakdown mentally and then physically if you do not take a break, if you don't have a day off. Okay, so like I say, greedy bosses, greedy for money, they wouldn't care about that. They just bring in more bodies, shovel those off. So the observance of the Sabbath day became a day of rest, not only enjoying the fruits of your labor, but actually, no, you need to rest because of the nature. It was incorporated into the law of Moses. And then there was a lot of strenuous rules and regulations for that. The idea of the Levitical law of Moses was you should not do any work on that day. Okay, you should not do any work, and that was remember the Pharisees accused Jesus of breaking the Sabbath day, which he never did. However, you have examples in the Old Testament law when they did break the Sabbath day and God punished them. For example, in the book of Exodus, you see this, I think it's Leviticus, you see this guy, right after God tells him, no working on the Sabbath day, right after that, this guy is gathering sticks to kindle a fire. See, that's work. And God says, put him to death. One of the reasons for the Babylonian exile was that the land was supposed to also enjoy a Sabbath rest. God had prescribed that, and the Jews never did it. And the 70-year time frame was, God said, I'm going to give the land 70 years rest. All of that which you never gave. All right. So that is the Sabbath, the Levitical Sabbath day rule. Now, when we come to Christianity, the question is, should we obey the law? Because there are some who teach that we should observe the Sabbath day. For example, there are people who worship on Saturday as opposed to Sunday, which is kind of interesting because it's supposed to be a day of rest. I won't quibble over that. But remember, the Sabbath day is the seventh day. And the reason why the Jews then celebrate the Sabbath day is it starts on Saturday evening. No, I'm sorry. It starts with Friday evening and goes all the way to Saturday evening. That's the Sabbath period. So the question is, should we as Christians obey the Sabbath day? Now, here's the answer. There is no scripture that tells us that we should obey, especially from the Mosaic point of view, the Sabbath day. Okay? If you want to worship the Sabbath day, fine. Just like, there's but there's no law, there's no commandment that tells us that we should obey the Sabbath day as a commandment. In other words, there are no consequences. You're not going to be, God's not going to smite you because you work on the Sabbath day. There's, so if you have a job that requires you to work on the Sabbath day, and by the way, it's kind of funny because some people would say on Sunday, and if you want that job, then let me just put it this way. I would say don't refuse the job because you have to work on Saturday or Sunday, okay? And especially if it's a good paying job, or if you need the job, okay? Because God is not the one that's saying you shouldn't work, not under a Christian perspective. Christ in that respect is the Sabbath. In Hebrews chapter 3 and 4 talks about Christ being the rest that God had prepared. By the way, even under the Old Testament, the entering into the promised land was the Sabbath rest that God had talked about. Okay? All right. So we don't observe that. We don't observe any of that. The Sabbath day, there's no command for that. And when you go back, if you want to understand all of the Sabbath day rules, and since we are journeying through the Bible, we will get there because we are going to go through those books. The first 5 books of Moses that tells us about the Sabbath day worship. The Sabbath day rules, the Sabbath day regulations that was prescribed to the Jew. So now, as I said, because of the sin that entered the world, the rest, you never should tax your body and mind, right? Because all of those things can be affected if you overwork yourself. But again, understand that has nothing to do with in terms of God's intent. The intent of the Sabbath in the purest form is enjoying the fruits of your labor. Under the Mosaic law, not only was it to honor God, enjoy the fruits of your labor, but it also was to what? Provide a break in your labor. To rest your body, your mind, your emotions, right? It was to do that. All of those things it was to accomplish, okay? So all right, so that is the rest. Now, as we get into further into chapter 2, we are going to get into, again, really in a sense, the expandedness of what that rest looks like. As Moses gives us more details specifically about entering that rest where man was concerned and how God would play a role in that. In other words, remember, the role of man completes this rest. God created the earth. God created the heavens and the earth all for man. He creates all the animals. Again, we'll get into that further on because it is fascinating. And of course, unfortunately, it's going to be short-lived because we're going to come to chapter 3. And chapter 3 changes everything. All right, guys, we'll pick it up in the next study. We'll see you then. All right.